The Word of God says, opens quotation marks, "In the Lord I put my trust. How can you say to my soul, flee as a bird to your mountain? For look, the wicked bend their bow, they make ready their arrow on the string, that they may shoot secretly at the upright in heart. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? The Lord is in his holy temple, the Lord's throne is in heaven. His eyes behold, his eyelids test the sons of men. The Lord tests the righteous, but the wicked and the one who loves violence, his soul hates. Upon the wicked he will rain coals, fire and brimstone, and a burning wind shall be the portion of their cup. For the Lord is righteous, he loves righteousness. His countenance beholds the upright." Closes quotation marks. When we look at Psalm 11, we find David in a situation of deep anguish. The initial question of the psalm reflects this tension. How can you say to my soul, flee as a bird to your mountain? This verse reveals the dilemma between trusting God or yielding to fear and seeking a desperate escape. Today, we live in uncertain times where we often feel like David, pressured to flee, to retreat in the face of threats and crises that arise around us. However, this psalm reminds us that fleeing is not the answer for the righteous. The central verse of the message is, if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? In times of corruption, violence, and injustice, it is easy to feel powerless, not knowing what to do when the moral pillars of society seem to be crumbling. This reality is as present today as it was in David's days. We see the foundations of truth being attacked, and what was right seems to be collapsing. Our natural reaction may be to run, to abandon principles, or even to hide. Yet God calls us to firm trust, for he remains on his throne, sovereign and just. In verse 4, we find one of the most powerful statements of the psalm. The Lord is in his holy temple, the Lord's throne is in heaven. This is the great contrast. While threats multiply on earth, God remains unchanging, ruling from his throne. He is not taken by surprise. His gaze is upon men, and he sees every action, every decision. In today's world, where chaos and uncertainty surround us, this truth should be an anchor for our souls. God still reigns, and he has not lost control. The Lord tests the righteous. This is another crucial part of this psalm. The Christian life will not be free of difficulties. God tests the righteous, but this testing is not for destruction, but for growth. The trials we face purify and shape us, strengthening our faith and drawing us closer to him. The difficulties we experience today, whether family, personal, or spiritual crises, are opportunities for us to be tested and to show that our trust is firmly rooted in God. The final verses speak about the fate of the wicked. God is just and hates violence and wickedness. Upon the wicked he will rain coals, fire and brimstone, and a burning wind. This imagery reminds us of the seriousness of divine judgment. For those who walk far from God, who seek destruction and injustice, there will be consequences. The burning wind mentioned here can be compared to the tribulations we see in modern society. Moral chaos, existential crises, the increase of violence and corruption. These are merely preludes to a greater judgment to come. Finally, the psalm gives us hope, for the Lord is righteous. He loves righteousness. His face is toward the upright. Those who remain faithful, those who seek justice, can trust that God is on their side. He is not indifferent to our pain or struggles. In today's world, where injustice seems to prevail, we must remember that God is attentive. He sees and he will act in his perfect time. True justice will come from the hands of the one who is just. Application for today, Psalm 11 teaches us that even amid chaos and disorder, our trust must remain in God. Today we face pressures to abandon our faith, to conform to the corrupt standards of the world. But this psalm challenges us to keep our eyes fixed on the Lord, knowing that he is in control and that in the end his justice will prevail. The message of Psalm 11 resonates deeply in our modern society. We are constantly tempted to yield to fear, despair, and even abandon the principles that God has established. However, this psalm calls us to trust in God, reminding us that he remains on his throne. He is just and loves justice. Therefore, even when everything seems to be crumbling around us, we can rest in the promise that God is with us and that in the end, his justice will triumph.